What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Early Edge. Happy Tuesday, which if I'm saying Tuesday, you know we've got something cool tonight at 7 o'clock, which I'll get to in just a second. Let's take a look at the recap screen. Again, a couple too many X's here. Proppy goes 1-for-1. That Hawks play doesn't come through. That was close down the stretch, but the Clippers and company pulled away there. We got to improve. We got to do better, and we're going to do that not only on this show, but on the early wedge. We did okay last week on the early wedge. We're going to do okay, if not better again. We got the Waste Management Phoenix Open. This is a very exciting tournament for those of you that are uninitiated to golf betting, which I can't imagine at this point is many of you. This is the tournament to get started in tonight at 7 o'clock. It's me, EC, otherwise known as Eric Cohen, and and Patrick McDonald. Us three are going to be doing it every single Tuesday night at 7 o'clock on the early wedge. My SportsLine article will be out later tonight as well, so you can look forward to that. All right, enough about me, enough about the early wedge, enough about our recap screen. Let's bring in today's stars of the show. We've got Buckets. And by the way, I've talked to Buckets before the show. I scolded him. I told him that if he missed yesterday, if you watched the show, I said, if you missed the pick, I'm not sure if we can have you back, but we're having him back, Buckets. I know it was a little touch and go there for you. I know you were a little nervous, but we allowed you back on the show. I know you got a great soccer pick coming up. Mikey B's on the show. Griffin Carroll's on the show. We got some NHL bets. We got NBA bets. Of course, we got soccer bets. But before we get into those, and by the way, I have a college basketball bet. Before we get into those, though, let's talk some Super Bowl. We're, 5 days away from the Super Bowl at this point, and our projection model has some of the top plays on each side of the ball for the Chiefs and for the San Francisco 49ers. These are the top-rated prop projection plays with our AI model. We've got Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 completions. We've got Patrick Mahomes under 1.5 total passing touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco, this is a controversial one, under 65.5 rushing yards, and total receiving yards for Travis Kelce over 70.5. Now we're going to go around the board here. I'm going to start, actually. I think the one I like the best here is probably Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 completions. He had 30 against the Ravens last week. It's a lot of an extension of the running game when it comes to the passing game for the Chiefs. A lot of short area throws. I think I like Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 completions in this one. Mikey B, I'm kicking it to you next. Which of these four Chiefs props that are favored by our AI prop projection model, which of these do you like?
Yeah, I'm with you on the Mahomes over 25.5 completions. He said he had 30 last week. They'd probably like to run the ball in this game. Pacheco's been really good, but the 49ers have allowed the third fewest rushing yards per game in the league during the regular season. I think Mahomes is going to need to throw a lot of short passes, and he'll go over that number.
All right, Griffin Carroll, I think a lot of people who follow you, they know you do NFL as well, but maybe if they only know you from this show, by the way, you see his Griffy Bets is where you can follow him on Twitter or the X, but definitely give him a follow if you don't already. But you do a lot of NFL, so you must like one of these four.
I do, and at the risk of being boring, I want to jump on Mahomes completions also, mostly just looking at these matchups. The thing that stands out the most for props has been Chiefs receivers and running back receptions. And I have crunched some numbers, someone could fact check, but I think to get receptions, you need completions. So when I look at this board, that's what stands out to me the most.
Yeah, well, that certainly makes sense. Buckets, does that make sense to you? To get receptions, you need completions. And do you like one of these four before we move on to the Niners?
The logic seems sound there, Sia. I'm not the biggest NFL guy in the world, but I can't argue with something that watertight. I will say, looking at these lines, I don't see any interception lines. So unfortunately, there's nothing here I'm really gravitating towards yet.
All right. By the way, it's airtight, not watertight.
Oh, not watertight?
Yeah. So, 0 for 1 so far. But
we disagree.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we covered the Chiefs. We covered the prop projection model with the Chiefs. Let's take a look at the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk, again, these are the four that the prop projections favor the most here, and they've been very good. If you've been following our projections, these have been really hitting. Total receiving yards over 61.5 for Brandon Ayuk, over 58.5 total receiving yards for Deebo Samuel. Total receptions, over 4.5 for Deebo Samuel. George Kittle, under 3.5 total receptions. Okay, I like a couple here. If you watched yesterday's show, by the way, obviously a lot of people in the chat watched yesterday's show, and a lot of people in the chat hit the like button for yesterday's show, but maybe you didn't do it already today, so please hit the like button. I'm on this Deebo Samuel sort of like plus 450, most receiving yards in the game. I like that. So, of course, I'm going to like the over 58.5. I like the over 4.5 receptions because I think he gets hit in the short area as well. Mikey B, is it one of those two that you like, or are you looking to fade George Kittle or maybe take over receiving yards with Brandon Ayuk?
I'm with you. I like the Deebo Samuel. I'll go with the over 4.5 receptions. He caught 8 of 9 targets last week against the Lions. During the playoffs last season, he had at least 6 targets in all 3 games. The 49ers, they're going to want to get their hands in the ball in the hands of their best players, which is Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I think they look to Samuel early and often. This one's watertight, over 4.5%.
Oh, man. Shots fired indeed. Griffin Carroll, a.k.a. Griffey Bets. Which one do you like? And by the way, before you answer, Eric David in the chat. Love you, buddy. But I'm not in a long sleeve dress shirt. Look at the guns. I'm flashing them right here. This is the standard short sleeve. It's just a different material. It threw you off. But don't worry, I'm not changing the motif here. Griffin Carroll, are you changing the pick? Are you going away from Deebo or you're sticking with Deebo?
I actually sprinkled on Deebo to win MVP at plus 3,300.
I love that so much.
I just wanted to get a little spicy. So I would lean Deebo also. I don't think I'm going to touch his yards. I'm just going to ride his MVP campaign. I will say I put Ayuk 100 and a touchdown in a parlay 2 straight games to failure. So that seems like a lock that he's going to get 100 because I'm going to give up on him. Either of those guys, but I mean, Zay Flowers, I feel like what he did to the Chiefs, Deebo is in better position to do something similar. So I like him to have a better game.
Where would we be if Zay Flowers extended that ball but didn't fumble it? I mean, Chiefs were the better team. They probably would have won anyway, but we don't know that game. That was going to be 17-all if he scored that. I'm trying to remember. It feels like it was so long ago. Either way, That touchdown was absolutely key for the Baltimore Ravens, as Buckets knows. Buckets, before we get into our official picks, is there any of these 4 that you like from the prop projections?
See, I just want to point out that you did a little flex there in your short sleeve shirt, and all of a sudden this video got 200 more likes. So just throw that out there for everybody watching. Good work, Sia. I do actually really like the B Ayuk play here over 61.5, solely because the player projection is 86.9. So that's almost, 30 yards more than that? That sounds pretty good to me.
Wow. Okay. By the way, it's Brandon Ayuk, just so you know. Larry Hartstein's in the chat, by the way. So, by the way, everybody, you must hammer the Brandon Ayuk prop because of that analysis, of course. But we got the Maestro in the chat. Definitely catch his show with RJ White and Mike McClure from yesterday. It was live at 4:45, and Maestro was live from the Bellagio in Las Vegas. But a lot of Super Bowl analysis in their Big Six. I don't think I've seen you in this chat before, and if you have, forgive me. Hey, what's up? He says, Big Six, hit the like button. Moshi is in here. Absolutely love that. The Windowsills is in here. Second Best is back in here. Taylor DeHart, Haas. Everybody, thank you for being in here. Thank you for being so active. By the way, if you want to make some of these prop bets, I see you, Mark Buckholt. Say hi to Emma for me. Do it at MGM, or I should say BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get $158 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $5, and you will receive $158 instantly in bonus bets, regardless of your wager's outcome, with bonus code EDGE158. That's EDGE158. Now, I assume that promo, I'll double check it. I assume that promo is going through the Super Bowl. So time is running out on that one if you happen to have not taken advantage of it already. All right, Buckets, we got to get into your wheelhouse, right? Like, I'm lobbing you stuff. Like, if you lobbed me soccer stuff, I'd give you full reign to make fun of me, right? Because I would have no answers whatsoever. So I'm lobbing you football stuff, and I don't expect you to have great answers, not necessarily. Although, again, you are like the king of the INT somehow. With all that said, we got to get into soccer best bets before we do anything else. It's just that one thing we got to do first. It's right here.
A game so big.
Super Bowl 58 is going to be absolutely epic.
One day of coverage just won't cut.
It's on TV.
It's all things Super Bowl.
Super Bowl 58 Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
All week long.
You do not want to miss this.
On CBS Sports Network.
Darian in the chat. Japan is in the chat. Absolutely love this. Michael Rodriguez in the chat. All right, Buckets. I put some pressure on you yesterday, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like your soccer bet was going really well until it wasn't. Again, maybe I misinterpreted that, but you had a bet that looked like it was the right side of it, and then somehow it was the wrong side. So talk to us about that, but then talk to us about your pick.
Soccer is a very volatile sport to bet, and we saw that last night because of the presence of red cards. When a player gets ejected, you don't get to replace him with anyone else. You just have to play a man down, and usually that tends to go against us. But last night, we were on both teams to score. The home team scored, and then right after got a red card. The away team played for 50 minutes, a man up, could not get that finalizing goal. Live odds were close to minus 800 at the time of the red card to hit our bet. But this is what we do. This is part of the grind, and we keep moving forward, Sia. And when we move forward on a Tuesday afternoon, we do so by going to the FA Cup replays in a match between Coventry City and Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday is a newly promoted side into the championship in England, and this is a club that is already finding themselves in a relegation battle. They've got domestic matches and they've got cup matches, but really they need to focus on the domestic side and not worry about this FA Cup. Sheffield Wednesday has one of the worst away records you will ever see. In their last 13 away matches, they have scored a total of 4 times in those 13 matches. Meanwhile, Coventry City, when playing at home and when just playing in general, this is a really, really good club that you want to back. They've scored 2+ goals in their last 5 home matches, and in their last FA Cup home match, they scored 6 goals. I do think Coventry win. I like the money line, but at minus 175, it's a bit too steep for me. So I'm doing a same game parlay of Coventry City on the money line plus over 1.5 goals in the match. I think both of those goals, if not more, will come from Coventry, but that gets that juice down to a playable minus 125.
Absolutely love it. Love taking that at minus 125, certainly over minus 175. By the way, I feel like I want to dedicate an entire show to the chat in the sense that there's so many comments that I just can't catch up on every single one, right? We got a show to do. We have a certain time period we want to get the show in, but everybody lobbying for second best. I see you lobbying for more likes. Scott says any first round leaders. That's a great question. We'll have him on the early wedge tonight and probably in my SportsLine article, by the way. Steve Lochner says, I think I've seen you guys more than I've seen my best friends. I guess that makes us best friends, he says. Steve Lochner, if I recall, noted Baltimore Ravens fan. So sorry about bringing up that fumble from a few minutes ago. And let's see. Big Six says he played college ball at Bradley. I assume that's college basketball. Bradley's a good squad this year. So props to you there. That's great. And Griffin Carroll, our very own Griffin Carroll says, I am mesmerized by these empty shelves. In Bucket's background.
Times have been tough, guys. We got to, sell off what we can to keep things going. I still have 2 little things here. In all reality, though, Sia, Freya, and I accidentally knocked down all the shelves this morning. It was a huge cluster of a mess, and we are rebuilding now slowly.
So Freya is a big dog. How much does she weigh?
Freya weighs 105 right now.
Wow. Okay. So she can knock things down pretty easy if she's excited.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. By the way, if you want to ask Larry, otherwise known as the Maestro, any questions, go ahead and ask him. He is very active in the chat. Juan says we need more college basketball. Well, we'll get to at least one college basketball pick. Don't forget on SportsLine, Juan, if you're not a member of SportsLine, I already looked. There's plenty of college basketball picks. I have a different one, but there's plenty of college basketball picks on SportsLine. All right, Griffin Carroll, we got to talk some NHL. You've got 2 plays here. You've got a total, and then you've got what looks to be a player prop parlay. Very, very interesting. Talk to us about your 2 bets in the NHL.
Sure. Yeah. I'll start with the prop combo. I'm going back to a point parlay here of Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe to each get a point at plus 102. I'll hop in the chat if anyone's having trouble figuring out how to place this. And if you can't access this market, I'm fine with Florida over 3.5 goals. But so Tkachuk down at half a point line is just an absolute gift. He was rolling before the break, 9 points in his last 5 games. Verhaeghe's right there with him, 7 in his last 5. Definitely like Florida to score here against Philly. They were rolling before the break, and Philly, ever since this whole, Carter Hart and this Canada World Junior scandal that's going on, Carter Hart had to leave the Flyers. Their defense goaltending's been a mess since. They've allowed 5 goals in 4 of their last 5 games. So definitely expect the Panthers to pick on Philly here. Both have their number. They're both rolling at home. It's just plus 102, easy peasy to me. They're going to be on the ice together all night. So love that one. And then second play, I'm going to do Colorado, New Jersey over 6.5. The Avs did play a rare low-scoring game last night, but I actually think the fact they're on a back-to-back could be in our benefit here. A little fresher, back in the swing of things after the All-Star break. And their games are typically high-scoring. They've been one of the best over teams for feels like 2 months now. But on the road, their games are averaging 7.9 per game over the last month. And their last 2 back-to-backs saw 11 and 8 goals. And then New Jersey on the flip side went into break. A lot of high-scoring games. 3 of their last 4 saw 8 or more. And at home over the last month, they're averaging 8.5. And then the last 2 times these teams met, 9 and 12 goals. So That just was a nice intersection of numbers for me to load up the over here.
Last 2 times they met 9 and 12 goals. Did I hear that?
Yeah, I'm
right?
just asking for 7. I'm a simple guy over here. So yeah.
Jeez, it's conservative. I'm surprised you didn't take the alt line up to 10 or something. It looks like that's the average.
I'm sure I'll load up many more point combos here and just double and triple down like I typically do.
I love it, Griffin Carroll. All right. Again, at Griffy Bets. If you don't follow him, you should be, because he doesn't just do NHL. But when he does NHL, he does it very, very well. All right. That rhymed. It was an accident. I got to ask you, Buckets, real quick. Darian has a question. He says, Buckets, Galatasaray and under 4.5. What do you think? And also, did I mispronounce that?
Probably. I've probably been mispronouncing it wrong for 3 years now. I always say Galatasaray, but who knows? Yeah. No, that's a great wager. That's a tough one because it's a cup game. Galatasaray management has said that they are going to rotate their squad heavily in this. So all of their big goal scorers like Mario Icardi, Wilfried Zaha, Arcticoglu, all those big guys probably won't see a lot of play time here. I could see Galatasaray going up 2-0 early and then just kind of parking the bus. I think that's a fantastic way to play that match, though.
All right. Yeah, all those big guys. We know all those big guys, of course. Household names indeed. Big Six says, Sia, I like San Diego State tonight. All right. I didn't look into that game, but I will. If any of you have any bets that you want to lob our way, we want to hear it. A lot of you have really good soccer cappers in here, good NBA, college basketball cappers, not just Maestro. Everybody else in here, y'all are pretty good too. And Eric David likes some Hardenstein, Mikey B. Well, interesting, Eric David, because we're about to get to that. We're about to get to my college basketball play. Just one more quick break from our partners.
The madness doesn't just happen.
Yo, get ready!
And although it's marked on our calendars each year, it's built by moments of mayhem before.
And the crowd goes crazy!
And it begins to bubble long before it bursts. Sure, madness and March may go hand in hand, but it starts right here.
We are back on the early edge, and I'm going to go ahead and give out. I know Juan wanted a college basketball pick. And again, Juan, if you're not a member of SportsLine, just know, very easy to become a member. Just go to sportsline.com/join. For the promo code, type in winners, and you're going to get 60% off the annual plan. Again, sportsline.com/join. For those of you listening on the podcast, that's where you go. You get 60% off. All you have to do is type in winners. You get all the picks from everybody at Sportsline, but it's not just a pick site, right? It's a data site as well. There is so much to learn. There's articles on there, including my golf article, which isn't in the picks section. It's in the analysis section. There's so much that Sportsline has to offer. Just go to sportsline.com/join and get all of that, including those college basketball picks. My college basketball pick, I'm going with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech plus 4.5 at home against Wake Forest. The reason I chuckle a little bit is because Georgia Tech in conference play has been very bad, but they do have that recent win against North Carolina, one of my outrights. I put a ticket on them at 40-1 about, 4 or 5 weeks ago. It's now 14-1. So that's a very quality win. What I'll say about the other losses for Georgia Tech, listen, Georgia Tech's not a very good team. You look at Ken Pom, it's not a super good look, but a lot of their losses are single-digit losses. They're very close losses against, decent ACC teams. Now you got Wake Forest coming in, and Wake Forest is a pretty good team. Offensively, they can sometimes be a pretty great team, but on the road, they've been terrible in conference play. In the ACC, they're just 1-5, and that one win was, if memory serves, was against Boston College. Like, again, 1 win, 5 losses on the road in ACC play. I don't think this line should be 4.5, in spite of what Ken Pom says about the ratings of both of these teams. I think we're getting a favorable spread here. I think Georgia Tech, listen, they're not going to make the NCAA tournament. They got really not a ton to play for unless they really start to pick up some momentum. But I think this is a quality team that plays every single team they play pretty closely. So you're giving me 4.5 at home in conference play. Pretty much going to take that every time with that particular context. Give me Georgia Tech plus 4.5 at -120. If it's +4 at your book, that's cool too. I'll take the +4 as well. All right. That's your college basketball pick, Juan. Hopefully it comes in. Now we got to get to some NBA. And Mikey B, we've got a lot of people in the chat giving out some NBA picks. And one of them, like at least one of the picks that was in the chat, seems to be consistent with, at least somewhat consistent with a pick that you like. Talk to us.
Yeah, we're going to go Isaiah Hartenstein over 13.5 rebounds and assists. There's quite a bit of juice here at -142, but I still like it. The Knicks are going to be shorthanded again. Julius Randle and OG Anunoby are out. Hartenstein had at least 14 combined rebounds and assists in each of the last 3 games without them. If we go back even further, he has at least 14 combined rebounds and assists in 11 of his last 15 games. The Grizzlies have given up the 3rd most rebounds per game in the league. They're basically running with almost like G League players, so their shooting percentages have been terrible. The last time Hartenstein faced them, he had 20 rebounds and 2 assists. So I like him to go over this number. And then we're going to finish thing up with my Bulls. Ayo Dosunmu over 12.5 points at -105. He scored at least 13 points in 6 of his last 7 games. The reason why this number is so low, they're playing the Timberwolves. They have the best defensive rating in the league. However, the Bulls are going to be without Zach LaVine and Patrick Williams again. Alex Caruso is questionable with a thigh injury. Regardless of the score, I think Ayo is going to play around 35 to 40 minutes. He's shooting 49.3% from the field, 38% from behind the arc. So that kind of efficiency in that many minutes, over 12.5 points.
I love it. And forgive me, I continue to be distracted by the chat. Chris Kish has given out a play for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. He says JT posted over Wyndham Clark at +100. And there was somebody, it was Brett Pionk Buckets. He says, this chat is on fire today. That's true. And he says, now I can't stop looking at and laughing at Buckets' empty shelves. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what I need to do is I need to open a P.O. box and say people can send me whatever they want. And whatever you send, I'll fill the shelves with like community items there.
That's
not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's also kind of like a little
dangerous.
Cheap. Well, it's a little cheap. You're like soliciting people to send you stuff. I mean, that's interesting. But can I ask you, you do have a singular or 2 singular items over what appears to be your right shoulder. Can you just tell us what that is?
It is a Ronaldo 9 little printout. And this was actually from someone on Twitter. So just starting the community item as we go here. And then a graded 6 original Eevee from the Pokemon original set.
Oh boy, here we are.
Here
we are, ladies and gentlemen. As I transition to Scott Lusby, who says South Carolina. Can I tell you, Scott, that was one of the 2 plays I went to kind of like a less featured game, if you will, in this Georgia Tech game. But South Carolina at home, I believe, what was that line? 4.5. That looks like a pretty good look. South Carolina's playing so well. So I think it's not an official play by me by any means, but I think that is a pretty good look. I think we got to most of the questions in the chat. Chris Kish loves the Pokemon stuff, Buckets. So that's good news for you. Let's take a look at the recap screen real quick. All right. I've got Georgia Tech +4.5. Again, if you get this at +4, well, it should, by the way, if you get it at +4, it should be at -110. One site had this at +4.5. I took it at the -120, but +4 at -110 makes plenty of sense. Hartenstein over 13.5 rebounds and assists at -142 for Mikey B. And oh no, I didn't listen to the pronunciation. Dosunmu over 12.5 points at -105. I know that guy. Kachuk. And speaking of pronunciations, Verhage, 1+ point each, +102, and the Avalanche Devils over 6.5 at -115. Coventry money line plus over 1.5 at -125. That is Buckets play. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. Oh, wow. The South Carolina line is down to -3, says B Mills. That means something must have happened with that line. I can't imagine it went down that quickly based on sharp action. But again, wasn't an official play for me, which means I really didn't look into it too much. So maybe that's a line we really need to look into if you want to play that. Again, it was just a lean for me, down to -3. Very, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show. The chat, you guys were the MVPs of today's show. Try to be, by the way, we should have Tim Doyle tomorrow. So speaking of MVPs, we're going to have a crazy show tomorrow. Can't wait for that. But don't forget, we got Inside the Lines on the SportsLine channel, of course, at 1 o'clock. I believe that starts. And then, of course, the early wedge at 7 o'clock tonight with me, EC, and Patrick McDonald. But for the here and now, on behalf of Griffin Carroll, on behalf of Buckets, on behalf of Mikey B and Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, this is the Early Edge. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.